Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next league in the automated negotiation agents competition. I am going to be sharing the results of the Human Agent Negotiation League, um, and excited to be able to do so. So hopefully everyone is settled in the virtual conference, and you are able to listen in as we talk about the results of this year's competition. So just to give some background, as you know, this is our 11th ANAC, but this is only our fourth Human Agent League. And this year we have a number of new and exciting challenges. We had our most participants ever of any Human Agent League. We had 14 participants that made it through the competition. And we have been able to really examine the problem of human agent negotiation. And this league was started because there are a lot of very specific and interesting research topics that are related to the way humans negotiate and designing AIs that are going to be specifically dealing with those issues, understanding how people negotiate and how to negotiate with them. So without further ado, I'm going to give a little bit of background on these negotiations and how they are different from the other leagues. I will then be presenting the results of who our winners and runners-up are this year. And then finally, we will have some presentations from some of our finalists who will explain the strategy behind their agent. So the research in human agent negotiation is due to the fact that traditional agents negotiating with each other have a very different set of issues that are important in the consideration of building those than a human and an agent or two humans interacting with each other. With agent negotiation, you're often dealing with structured rounds, some kind of formal protocol, maybe a turn-taking protocol. Offers are often fully specified, or at least mostly specified, where you're talking about all the issues at once in a negotiation. And they tend to be very rapid. The goal is to reach an agreement that's going to be accepted by both sides, and you can send offers rapid fire back and forth at the speed of computing. Also, agent negotiation has traditionally modeled utilities as being time dependent. So the longer it takes to reach an agreement, the fewer points or utilities or benefit either side is going to get. Human negotiation is quite different from that in many ways. First of all, it's very freeform, meaning there's not often a set protocol. There may be some general thoughts that the humans engaging in negotiation believe are sort of structures that they should adhere to, but otherwise you can speak when you want, you can say what you want, you can interrupt, anything like that. Of course, offers are not firm until the very end of a negotiation. They're retractable. Often you're only talking about one issue at a time. Um, and compared to two agents negotiating, it's very, very slow. We also don't tend to formally model our utilities as decreasing over time. And there's myriad other channels, not just the offers being sent. There are emotions, there is language, argumentation, there are implicit biases, and of course cultural effects if you're looking at two humans negotiating across cultures. So all of this means that if we want to design agents that are capable of interacting with humans in any sort of meaningful way, they need to um, be aware of these issues and need to be designed specifically to tackle this problem. Now, the problem that we examine in the Human Agent League of ANAC is the multi-issue bargaining task. So this is a problem that's been used in various other leagues at various times. But just to go over it once more very quickly, the goal here is that you're splitting issues of different levels between a few sides. In our case, it's two, although, of course, supply chain leagues and other things that we've had have looked at more than two. And often this is something that you might encounter in the real world. So it could be a salary negotiation where you're discussing multiple different levels, amounts of vacation, amounts of job location, whether you're working remote or not, and of course pay. But in our case, we're looking at it as a traditional object separation problem. So you have a collection of objects that are worth a certain amount, and you're trying to split them up. Of course, in this, the thing that makes this interesting is that you can only see the utilities of your own side. You don't know what the other person wants. Of course, they can tell you, but they can lie about it if they want, or they could mislead, or they could refuse to tell you. These sorts of exercises are often timed. We do time ours, so if you run out of time then and fail to reach agreement, you do get your best alternative to negotiated agreement, or BETNA, which is a small amount of points that you will receive. Now, this competition has been conducted since its inception using the Iago agent platform. The Iago agent platform is a web-based platform for conducting research studies, and this competition where you have one human interacting with one agent. Although it can also be a platform for having two humans negotiate with each other in a structured way. Although the platform remains the same from previous years, I will show a very brief video showing what it looks like, just so that you're familiar. So the Iago negotiation platform, this is the web interface. It runs natively in a browser. You can express your preferences by clicking and moving different icons around. So what you're seeing is the user here saying, I like boxes of records less than cuckoo clocks. Of course, the agent has an embodiment and an avatar in the top left that can express emotions, so can the player. And of course, there's our simulated offer table or board where you can specify exactly the kinds of offers that you want to send to the automated agent, and it can respond in turn. Now, the Iago API exposes all of these events to the agent developer, so you can see if there is any need to respond when an emotion is pressed, or when an offer is sent and the content of that offer, or if any sort of verbal utterance is used, or a favor is requested. Of course, this is all done in real time using an event-based system, so agent designers have to be cognizant of when they want to respond, how long they want to take to do it, how they handle interruptions, all kinds of complex timing issues. Now, it's important to note that the agent designers do have access to all these events and their own preferences, but they do not and cannot view the utilities and preferences of the human, so no cheating. Now, the challenge this year differs from previous years in a couple of ways. So we are continuing to look at the repeated negotiation problem. That is the idea of multiple negotiations being a fundamentally different problem than a single one, because the actions you take in the first negotiation will impact how you are perceived in later rounds. But different this year is the ability for the human players to actually specify their preferences. So this has a couple of benefits. One, it allows you as the player to be more immersed in the interaction. You're able to actually say, look, these are the things that I want, and when the negotiation begins, you are actually going for that, as opposed to what was assigned, which we believe is really helpful for immersion. But also, this gives the agent designers something to work with, in that they can't simply learn, say, the preferences in one negotiation and assume it applies to the next. Every negotiation is going to be different. Now, to make this a fair competition, we do cause the preferences and the structure of the negotiation to be the same. So if I say I like apples best, and the next participant says they like oranges best, that's fine. That will be reflected. But the underlying structure of one item worth, say, 8 points and another item worth 5 points will be consistent across all of the interactions. So that was the first improvement and challenge we wanted to look at this year. And the second one is adding in not only different structures to the negotiation, but structures where the individual negotiations may benefit one side more than the other. So in contrast to previous years, where always the amount of points either side could get was equal, in this year's competition, that is no longer the case. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So just to dig into the negotiation task specifically, we do have these 3 repeated negotiations, but as I said, they're not identical in structure. The structure favors the agent in the first round, meaning there are actually more points available to the agent. The utilities, if you total all the items up, are higher than for the user. And this encourages the use of favor exchange and to talk about gaining a benefit that you will then pay back later. Now, round 2 is the mirror image of this. In this case, the humans have a favor in the structure. And then round 3 is equitable. Both sides have the same structure. So over all the negotiations, same amounts of points are available to either side. But each negotiation, that's not necessarily the case. And it's important to note that the agent designers did not know this structure beforehand. So they had to create a strategy that could detect it, learn it, benefit from it in some way. We did have a time limit of 7 minutes, and if you timed out, you got your BATNA. So just a bit more on the experimental details. We did run 25 human participants for each agent, in fact, at least 25. That was quite a few participants this year because we did have more participants, agent designer participants, than we've ever had. We had 15 submissions, 14 of which were actually run in the competition. So 14 times 25 meant we were dealing with hundreds of participants this year that we recruited. We used the same practices that we've used in past competitions with even more robustness. So we had attention checks, post-negotiation filtering. If people failed attention check questions, they were cut out of the results. And then we did run more participants to ensure we would have enough for each of the submitted agents. And if people timed out on all the negotiations, they were thrown out. Now, we did use English-speaking, U.S. residing Mechanical Turk subjects, even though we have participants from all around the globe that submit our agents. We do focus on the U.S. for our recruiting because we want to eliminate a confounding factor of cultural differences, or at least mitigate that confounding factor. So there's big difference, a lot of impact if you're looking at individualistic versus collectivist or honor-based societies and cultures. So we want to make sure that we look only in one type of culture. We followed best practices with regard to the recruitment. Participants were awarded a baseline and then more incentive pay the better they did. We collected demographic data, performance data, and post-game survey data regarding how much they liked the agent, which is something we've examined for several years. So without much further ado, I want to announce the winners and share with you the results of this year's competition. Just a little bit of aside on the statistical method. We looked at one-to-one means comparisons for the agent's points. We also looked at several Likert scale questions to determine the likability score on a range of 1 to 7. And we used one-way contrast and some Bonferroni corrections and Tukey's to make sure that we weren't over-finding significant differences. But regardless of whether the differences were significant or not, for the purposes of the competition, and the winners, ties were broken in the direction of the statistical trend. So whoever got the most points was the winner. So here are our results. So I've broken this out over all 3 rounds of the game. So you can see, first of all, that the agents are all following a very similar trend, which I think is very encouraging. So they are being able to take advantage. All the agents did better in the first round than in any other round. So they are taking advantage of the structural benefit of that round. They are getting more points because it benefits them. So it's not unexpected to see that higher result. But all of the agents really took advantage of that in different levels. So we had agents that got more than twice as many points as other agents based on how well they were able to interpret and take advantage of that benefit. We also were able to show that in the second and third games, although there was some variance between them, most of the agents actually scored approximately the same amount of points in both, which I think is very encouraging because the second round favored the humans. So they did lose ground between round 1 and 2, but then the agents maintained that. They didn't lose any further ground when they went into the third round. So as you can see, we had all of our agents doing various different levels of success, but all managing to follow the structure of the negotiation and do well. So here are these same points but summed, so you can see the total. This is what we used to calculate the winner. So you ought to be able to see our outlier winner here for total points, but we had several agents that did very well this year. And all of our agents, I will state, are doing very well in comparison to the humans. They are managing to most of the time beat the humans, do better than them. We've really seen that improve over the years that we've been doing this competition. And admittedly, we are looking only at not expert negotiators by any means. We're looking at amateurs, but the fact that these agents are able to, within the confines and constraints of this problem, to do well, I think is really encouraging. So the agent likability is on this slide. In contrast to previous years, most of our likability showed quite a bit less variance. We did have most of our agents, in fact all but one, scored more than 5 on the Likert scale, and the other one was just under 5, and we had some that were over 6. So looking at this likability, we can see that the strategies that people employed this year really didn't come at much of a cost to likability. So I think that speaks to the efficacy of these strategies in the long term for being able to gain value without causing the opponents, the human participants, to want to stop negotiating with you. I will now announce the winners formally. So congratulations to our participants, all of which submitted really great work this year. Our winner this year is the pilot agent. It's from Kushal Chawla and Gail Lucas at the University of Southern California. And we also had several runners-up. The 2 top runners-up this year were Draft Agent. This is the second year that they've been in the top spots of the competition and have done really, really well. So congratulations to them. And the Rennie Agent from College of Management Academic Studies in Israel. Just wanted to also mention that we had a class that used Iago and this competition as a potential final project for an AI class. So we had a lot of great participation from people that were designing agents for coursework and who decided to also submit them to the competition. And so we had a lot of great participation from that. So if you are interested in using Iago for a class, know that people have done it. So please join me in your offices and your homes in taking a moment to snap your fingers and clap your hands for our winners. Prizes and certificates will be distributed electronically, hopefully next week or very soon. Bear with us since we can't be there in person. But thank you all for participating and for really advancing the state of the art this year. Now, without further ado, I do want to introduce 2 of our finalists and our winner who are going to present a brief overview of their work and of the agents that they submitted that did so well. They were kind enough to prepare these presentations for us, and we are looking forward to hearing about the strategies that they used. So first up is our winning agent, Pilot, and I will now start this presentation for us to all learn about their strategies.
Hi everyone, I'm Kushal. I'm a PhD student at the University of Southern California. I'm presenting our agent pilot for the Human Agent League of ANAC this year. This is work with my advisor, Gail Lucas. Let's begin. Research in building systems that can negotiate with human partners finds applications in 2 broad areas. One is pedagogy, where we can augment the existing ways of teaching negotiations to students. And secondly, conversational AI, where we can improve the capabilities of conversational assistance. As you might be aware, our focus in this competition is on three back-to-back negotiations where a bad relationship in earlier negotiations can affect the performance in later ones. And our focus is to maintain the relationship while also achieving better outcomes in the competition. We use the Iago framework built by Jonathan Mall. I start by describing the overall persona of pilot. We observed from previous ANAC competitions that humans tend to remain truthful and they roll out very few offers. In an attempt to take advantage of this observation, we build pilot to portray a leader personality. It attempts to lead and first pushes the human partner for preference exchange before discussing any offers. It also portrays as more experienced negotiator and also guides the human partner in navigating the system. Prior work has also shown advantages of building rapport in negotiations, and it's more important now when you are in a repeated negotiation scenario, as I mentioned before. Hence, in an attempt to build a rapport, pilot remains honest while sharing preferences, and it does not hold back any information when explicitly asked for. Our major focus while building Pilot was on the behavior policy of the agent. However, I'll describe all the three policies on this slide at a high level. We build Pilot as a competitive agent, which starts off with a very high offer, but the offers get relaxed as more and more time passes in the same negotiation. Further, the initial offer itself gets stricter in later negotiations, just as a way to gain an advantage in the beginning. And further, we understood from previous ANAC competitions, one of the submissions uh, uses full offers to save time, and being inspired from there, Pilot only deals in full offers. Also, we engage in a delayed favor exchange as far as the baseline agent is considered. I'll talk more about this on the next slide. Message policy, we tackle several potentially confusing statements in the context of the Iago framework, which is used by these agents, by either modifying them or removing them completely. Pilot reveals an inflated BUTNA, just as an attempt to gain further advantage. As far as the expression policy is considered, Pilot starts off moderate but uses extreme emotions like anger towards the end to gain more points in the negotiation. A key characteristic of Pilot is its effective use of favor exchange. Repeated negotiations provide the opportunity to indulge in favor exchange with the human, where a favor accepted in the current negotiation can be paid back in the upcoming ones. However, prior work shows that whether the favor request is fruitful or not depends on the personality of the partner, such as their social value orientation, which captures how cooperatively an individual is expected to approach the negotiation. This is one of the disadvantages which we found in the baseline implementation. And previous work shows that favors may not even work with partners who portray competitive or selfish behavior traits. In fact, based on prior ANAC results, favor exchange may even backfire with selfish partners. The best way to deal with this situation is to modify pilot's behavior based on the social value orientation of the partner. Unfortunately, this kind of information is not available to pilot or any agent developed an Iago beforehand. Hence, to circumvent this problem, we leverage prior work in psychology, which suggests that framing or usage of strategic textual messages can help to promote cooperative behavior in humans. And this makes it more likely for the human participant to accept the favor exchange. Further, another disadvantage in the baseline implementation is that whenever the favor exchange request is accepted, the agent only claims a single item at the beginning of the negotiation. To help with this, we first delay the favor request until a strong opponent model is built by the agent. That's the time when the human has shared at least a couple of preferences with the agent itself. And then once the strong opponent model is built, then the agent rolls out the favor exchange request, and if accepted, it rolls out a full offer, which highly benefits the agent. And that's how this makes the favor exchange in pilot both more likely and productive, making the agent overall ending up with a better deal. Finally, I would like to point out a couple of resources related to our agent. First, the preprint of our system design is available on arXiv. You can find the link down below. Also, our work was featured by Tech Explore Digital Magazine. You can find out the whole article over here. Thank you.
All right. Please join me in thanking Kushal and his mentor in giving this presentation and for being the winning agent in this year's competition. It looks like he made some great improvements based on prior work from past winners and integrated some interesting new features. I also runners up this year. The draft agent, which I mentioned has previously been one of our top agents in past years. And I will leave it to this group to describe their approach.
Thank you for coming to our talk. I'm Bohan Xu presenting along with Dale Paisley about the draft agent design for the 2020 Human Agent Negotiation Competition. The other contributors on this project are Michael Nagib and Sandy Chen from the Multi-Agent System Research Lab in the Tandy School of the Computer Science at the University of Tulsa. Our agent is one of the finalists of Human Agent Negotiation Competition in ANAC 2020, which is organized by the University of South California. In the competition, a human participant and the agent will negotiate about the allocation for a set of issues, where the value of each issue may be different to human and agent. Both parties try to maximize their own utility, which is the summation of the values for all the items they obtained after the 3 rounds of negotiation, according to their own preference profile. And on the right side is a screenshot of the Iago platform for human and AI to communicate with each other. Next, I will introduce the strategy of our agent. Our agent will negotiate with human by following this flowchart. At the beginning of each round, our agent will send out a greeting message with an anchor offer, which is purely dependent on the agent's preference profile. If the human accepts the anchor offer, then we come to a final agreement. If not, we will start the preference elicitation by using the draft protocol. More details about the draft protocol will be given by Dale later. If the human completes the protocol, then an initial offer will be sent out, which is based on both agent and estimated human preference profiles, and aiming for a fair allocation. If the protocol is not complete, our agent will generate a backup initial offer, which only depends on the agent's preference profile. If the initial offer or the backup initial offer is accepted by the human, we will make a final deal. If not, the agent will ask and wait for a certain period of time about the counter offers from human. Then the corresponding counter offer from agent will be sent to human by modifying the previous offers. It is an iterative step until both parties agree with the final allocation. In the following, I will pass the presentation to Dale, and he will provide more details about the draft protocol, multi-round strategy, and the language design.
So at the beginning of each round, we make what is an anchor offer. It's made as a blind offer using only our own preferences, with the goal of breaking the ice by giving just a basic offer that also provides as a reference point for the rest of the negotiation. In the case, however, that the preferences are complementary, with our highest being their lowest and so forth, the agent also has a pretty good shot of generating a mutually beneficial deal that can be accepted and ending that round quickly. And when or if this doesn't work, we move on to our preference elicitation strategy through the draft protocol. The draft protocol was chosen not only because it was relatively simple, but also because it provides a two-way flow of information so that the human sees our agent also cooperating with them and helps build trust. In order to complete the draft, negotiation parties, they take turns, each selecting all of the items of a single unclaimed issue until all issues are claimed. After we finish this, we seek to create a offer that has an even allocation of both sides according to their preference orders. To do that, we use this algorithm here, and we're not going to go in detail. The basics of it is that it starts off by looking at each party's top item. If they're not the same item, then each party gets their top item. If they are the same item, then you split that item in half, or as close to half as you can get in the case if it's not. You alternate breaking ties. This is then iterated down through all of their other preferences until all items are allocated. This year, they gave us a new mechanism, the favor request, where the player can send a favor request message to the agent. If our agent receives one, we, in the first two rounds, if they don't already have an outstanding favor request, we accept the favor request and give them a better deal in order to fulfill that favor. In the final round, we remind them of any outstanding favors they have in order to just better facilitate our already planned, a little bit more greedy strategy in that final round. So across the 3 rounds, in the first couple, our strategy is to just be as non-greedy as possible, just fair to both parties, providing mutually beneficial offers in order to build trust and promote cooperation. In the final round, in order to exploit the mechanism of the game, the fact there's no final rounds and the trust is no longer needed, we are much more greedy with our offers in that round in order to maximize our score within the competition. One of the things we focused on a lot was the language that our agent would use. The first of it was ease of understanding. We wanted to make sure that our language wasn't hard to read or too long or bulky so that the human was tripping up trying to figure out what the agent was trying to tell it. The other thing we realized is that some of the phrases the agent says, like, making an offer or rejecting an offer, could be said a lot of times. So we didn't want our agent to seem static and unintelligent. So we gave it multiple options of what to say at most cases. As for rejecting an offer, it could say, no, thank you, or sorry, I can't, or, no way, man, or whatever, in order to just give the agent more options to make it sound more dynamic and less unintelligent. We also wanted to guide the human user through the draft protocol. It's easy to kind of get lost within the draft protocol if you're not familiar with it, as we found when we did some of our testing. And so we made sure that at each step we told the human exactly what we were wanting from them so that we didn't have a human who was attempting to comply but just couldn't figure out what we were trying to tell them. Here are some of the interactions here. The first line up there being how we would initiate the draft. As you can see, it goes through and very clearly describes exactly what we want. The next one is the response to favor request. It's actually, we wanted to say that one very enthusiastically, so we actually send a emotion message taking advantage of the facial expression made by the avatar and the emoji in the text column there in order to convey our excitement at being able to do this. Again, that's to promote their cooperation with us. In the case that our opponent isn't responsive, either they're ignoring what we're trying to get them to go do with going through the draft, or that they're just not responding at all, we send a series of nudging messages being very gentle about it as to not offend or just, insult the opponent. If that doesn't work, we have to go to our fallback strategy. We still then give them the benefit of the doubt in that language, so we don't make an enemy out of someone who was just was having difficulty with the interface, or like just further create tension with someone who wasn't cooperating with us anyway. So to give a recap of the agent, it's based around preference elicitation through the draft protocol. And we build a language model that guides the user step by step through everything. We use tactics like anchor deals to establish a reference point for the negotiation. We aspire for win-win deals in order to promote cooperation and build trust with the user. We honor favor requests and see them as a valuable way of building a back and forth in a relationship with the human within a negotiation. And in the final round, we are much more greedy in order to take advantage of the nature of competition. We're super excited to be in the finals of this year's competition, and we look forward to performing competitively within these finals.
Okay, so thank you again to the team from the University of Tulsa who made the draft agent. I thought they did a really great job extending their preference elicitation strategy to also incorporate favors this time around. So these guys have done a great job in continuing to be really at the top of the pack. So congratulations. So just to give a little bit in conclusion about sort of takeaways from this year and looking towards the future. As I mentioned, we had some new challenges this year with regard to the fact that the structure of the negotiations was not set in advance, and it's important to note that none of these agent designers knew in advance that they had favors in this way, and yet they still were able to take advantage of it. So we had new improvements that allowed participants to specify their own goals. This year's agents were able to do well in spite of this, and perhaps even because of this, to adapt well to the structure and to the preferences. They were really able to take advantage of the structure, but not give ground when it was against them. So I think we had some really good results this year. Congratulations again to everybody. Can't do this without your support, and am super happy that we had so many good participants this year. After 4 years of Iago competitions, we can say that we're really making some effective agents, even when the structure is unknown and variable. Now, of course, there are questions that remain. One of the things we want to explore is how well these agents really do against a more experienced negotiator. One of the developments going on with Iago right now is to try and determine something whether the framing of whether the opponent is perceived as a human or as an agent makes a difference, and that could also be very relevant depending on the kind of participant we're looking at. Of course, we're always interested in the question of whether these favor-seeking agents will continue to do well on longer and longer timescales, which is something that may be explored in the future. Iago itself is getting some improvements in 2021. As I've mentioned, it supports this automated preference elicitation before the negotiation, so human users can input what they want. There's a new API that has a new messaging system with new annotations that makes designing an agent even easier than it was before. There are some power dynamics, rights, and sort of some dispute resolution framework stuff that's going to get added to Iago. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. And generally, if you are interested in using Iago for your class, for your research, you can either email me directly, or you may visit the website at myiago.com. And thanks to everyone who participated in the competition this year, and we look forward to continuing improvement and research in the future. Thank you all.